establishment Western media outlets are suddenly in love with the head of HTS, the rebel group that just drove the Syrian government out of Damascus. But why are they carrying water for someone who killed potentially dozens of U.S. Army soldiers? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about the media suddenly standing for this Al-Qaeda terrorist. Okay, so this is absolutely blowing my mind. I can't swear in the first minute or two of YouTube videos, but I want you guys to understand who is Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani. All right. So this is someone who is, according to the media, just a nice guy who's kicked out the Assad regime. Now, don't get me wrong. I hate Assad and his regime. And nothing makes me happier than seeing a Russian and Hezbollah-backed dictator being shown the door. But that doesn't mean his replacement is going to be a lot better. Why is that? Well, because HTS, the initialism of the group that just kicked the Assad regime in the teeth, well, their head is a pretty bad dude himself. Now, here's what I want to point out. The head has, look at his military and political career and tell me if you think this guy sounds like he is going to be this great, friendly Western leader in Syria, right? Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, which of course is a nom de guerre, right? A identity assumed for purposes of warfare. Literally, the name al-Jawlani is a reference to the occupying Golan Heights. So a real sign that this guy carries some resentment towards the Israeli government. And again, this is as common as like voting in the United States, is hating the Israelis. So that doesn't exactly make him an uncommon in the Arab world, but it's a little weird that he's persisted in this anti-Israeli nom de guerre for years. And it makes sense when you look at where he has fought. He cut his teeth as a kid in the Iraq War, literally working in Al-Qaeda in Iraq, including at least one claim that he was a close associate of Abu al-Zarqawi, one of the most brutal commanders of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And this is someone who, AQI killed a lot of U.S. troops. I don't know how else to tell it to you. They were probably one of the most effective terror organizations that operated in Iraq. And of course, in 2021, during his what we're going to call his whitewashing tour, he claimed he never even met al-Zarqawi and was just a regular foot soldier in Al-Qaeda in Iraq, right? Now, in 2006, he was arrested by American forces and imprisoned for over 5 years in various facilities where he emerged. But don't worry, guys. I'm sure his 5 years in detention and his 3 years before that, literally killing U.S. troops for Al-Qaeda, it didn't affect his beliefs in any way, shape, or form. But once he got out, right, he ended up crossing into Syria, right? Actually, and was so trusted by AQI, they gave him a bunch of money and said, friend, go out and expand Al-Qaeda's presence in Syria. And boy, did he ever. They went up against the ISIL. They've refounded the Al-Nusra Front, right? And this is someone who has been on one of the top terror watch lists for years. And you've got to understand, this is somebody who literally HTS as recently as recently, I think it's 2017, the U.S. government rejected what they called a rebranding of the Al-Nusra Front as HTS, with the U.S. Embassy in Syria stating, quote, the core of HTS is Nusra, a designated terror organization. This designation applies regardless of what name it uses or what groups it merges into. The embassy characterized HTS formation as an attempt to, quote, hijack the Syrian revolution rather than move towards actual moderation, right? Now, they claim that HTS prioritized combating Al-Qaeda and ISIS in an effort to improve its standing with Western nations. HTS successfully kicked out ISIS and Al-Qaeda and most opposing forces in its territory. But here's the thing, guys. Just because if there's one thing we know about extremist groups, it's that there's only one thing they hate more than their ideological enemies, and that is people who are almost exactly like them, but not quite. Right? Look at any group of religious fundamentalists, and they'll be able to tell you why some other group that's just down the road that is almost identical to them is somehow the spawn of absolute Satan. Right? Look at any political, especially men in U.S. politics. Our left-wing party is famous for this. Right? If you don't agree with the most ideologically pure member of them, they'll consider you an absolute degenerate and closeted fascist. So when you have this kind of infighting, don't confuse the fact with I hate Al-Qaeda with therefore I am like a pro-Western moderate, okay? Again, the proof is in the track record, right? Iraq War, Syrian Civil War, literally sent money to create an Al-Qaeda affiliate, guys. This is like a McDonald's franchisee being sent to a new town with a bag of cash from McDonald's being told, open a McDonald's. And then you go, do you think they could be loyal to Burger King? No, dude, there's no possibility of it. But that hasn't stopped some really weird coverage of this guy from mainstream media sources. But before we take a look at that, I want to mention that one of the reasons that I can fire shots like this at mainstream media, at the U.S. government's hard turn on this guy, and call out this BS when I see it is because I'm not beholden to sponsors. I'm not beholden to any media organization. That's why I'm self-funded through you guys. So if you want to help fund me and get access to twice a week, I drop members-only videos that have uncensored combat footage that YouTube won't let me show you. That is over on combatvetnews.com. The link's in the description. Become a member, sign up, get all the benefits, and help me stay independent. Okay, so take a look at this from mainstream site The Telegraph. This is from, of course, one of the UK's largest newspapers, and you could see how it touts this, again, former Al-Qaeda terrorist as someone building a diversity-friendly jihadist, how he plans to build a state. He's issued statements aimed at allaying fears among the population aligned with the Assad regime. Now, of course, he is formally passing over responsibility for the city to the jihadist group's proto-government. And boy, he assures the public the group is going to govern as well as fight, right? Now, human rights groups may have documented his torture of political opponents in Idlib, and of course, he had at one point a $10 million bounty on his head from the United States because he joined both Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State before splitting from both groups. So again, is this somebody whose reform is going to be like tremendous? But listen to this. This is where things get even crazier. Again, this dude killed American soldiers. I don't know what else to tell you. Syrian regime rebel leader said his goal is to overthrow the Assad regime. This is in an interview he did yesterday with CNN. Dude, lads, just gaze upon this level of absolute madness. Now, you could see he's literally sitting down with a CNN journalist. And again, this is just an established playbook, right? Literally, he's running the Che Guevara playbook or the Fidel Castro playbook, literally down to the beard and the jacket. What is the Fidel Castro playbook? Well, the answer is that when Fidel was kicking out the dictator of Cuba, Batista, he, in all his interviews, including numerous interviews with U.S. media outlets, said, listen, I'm here to bring democracy. I'm going to give control of the island back to its people. I am a democratic force. I just want the dictatorship to end. And once the dictatorship ended, right, savvy actors knew that the fact that all of his staff were avowed communists meant that Castro was likely to implement a communist dictatorship. And so even though he promised he wouldn't, once he took power, he brought communism to the island. And this is the thing. He's running the same playbook. He's letting the Western governments cheer and call him a great, moderate, swell guy. And when he takes power and he gets recognized, he's going to just switch the script and implement a strict Islamic caliphate. That's just what's going to happen, right? Now, he in this interview, they have some real, they got some real doozies here, right? Listen to this. Quote, for someone, this is from the article, quote, for someone who once operated in the shadows, Jelani exuded confidence and tried to project modernity into his meeting with CNN, which took place in broad daylight with little security. Right? Jelani said he's gone through episodes of transformation through the years. A person in their 20s is different than someone in their 30s or 40s. This is human nature. Jelani cut his teeth as a young fighter for al-Qaeda against the U.S. in Iraq. Returning to his homeland during the Syrian civil war, he led the terror group's affiliate in Syria when he was under the name Jabhat al-Nusra. He would go on to break ties with al-Qaeda, and the organization evolved into Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. So this is just an absolute... I'm just like in awe. I'm just in awe of like the willingness of some of these outlets to decide that they need to carry water for a terrorist. I don't know. Were we alive for the same Iraq war? Like the Al-Qaeda in Iraq would literally bomb markets full of civilians on the Sunni side. Then they would bomb a market on the Shia side, and they would tell the guys that, oh, this was all done by the other side. So literally they would just kill women and children just to get people riled up to fight each other. They literally bathed that country in blood. They did. The level of horror in that war is hard to understate, right? This is an organization that would take power drills and drill through the kneecaps of Iraqi police. They would behead women and children like it was going out of style. The fact that we're sitting here pretending like this is some great dude who's going to be a moderating influence for Syria is absolutely insane, right? And I feel like I'm in crazy town that I am even talking about it, right? Now, would you like to see why I think this guy is probably full of it? Why? Because we've heard these stories before from the Taliban who took over and said, listen, guys, we know it's 2021. We've just taken over the government of Afghanistan, and we pretty pinky promise to respect women's rights and forgive those who fought them and ensure Afghanistan does not become a haven for terrorists. Of course, the Taliban, they say, you know, the old generations remember our rule. We confined women to their homes, banned television and music, held public executions, but now we're saying we promise we're going to honor women's rights. Within the norms of Islamic law, right? They've encouraged women to return to work and have allowed girls to return to school, right? A female news anchor was even allowed to interview a Taliban official, right? This is what's called a charm offensive, right? And I just want to point out here that 2 years later, the Taliban said no more music, right? Taliban actually went and burned what they called immoral musical instruments, right? Banned by Taliban, stuck at home. And you can see that the Taliban just will lie to anyone. Why? Because in a lot of religions, it's okay to lie to people who are horrible, right? And so I point all this out because I think this is one of those cases where I'm not saying we're making a mistake, but I'm saying if you're looking for a good guy, right? I can hear it already. The media spin machine, right, which largely still takes I think is so connected to the government that they do repeat a lot of government propaganda. These entities are gearing up to convince you that this guy, listen, he killed a lot of Americans. He's a known jihadist. He, at one point, had a $10 million bounty, but now he's a swell guy, and he's the American's friend. And listen, guys, you might recall that our friends in Afghanistan that we made in the 80s ended up becoming some pretty bad dudes themselves, and it ended up biting us in the teeth, biting us in the pants. So let's keep both eyes open when it comes to negotiating with another known terrorist. Anyway, guys, thank you so much to folks like Bill Collier, Robert Colburn, Gars, Marnie, Gina Questa, Chris Gorsuch, Francis Karis, AL90, Petra Toru, all of our Lieutenant tier members. I couldn't do it without you guys. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.